This episode is sponsored by Kerkering Barberio, your trusted partner in tax, audit, and outsourced accounting services. Serving Sarasota, Manatee, and the greater Tampa Bay area for over 50 years, KB helps clients achieve their personal and business goals. Visit kbgrp.com to learn more. Hello and welcome to the Business Observer from the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Ian Black, founder of Ian Black Real Estate, one of the largest commercial real estate firms in the Sarasota, Bradenton area. Ian, welcome and thanks for being here.
Yeah, appreciate it. Glad to be here, Mark.
Excellent. So we're going to go through a little bit of history. We're going to start with, I want to talk about what's happening now with Ian Black Real Estate, but even just hearing you talk for 5 seconds, people are going to know you're not from these parts. So tell us where you're from and kind of how you got over here to the United States. Like, narrow that down because I know there's a big story there.
Well, there is. I emigrated to the United States in 1982 from Belfast, Northern Ireland. I was in a very successful real estate brokerage company in Northern Ireland, even during the time of unrest and civil disturbances. We formed the partnership in 71, and by the time I moved to America in 82, we had expanded to 21 offices throughout Northern Ireland. And I felt that then at the tender age of 36, it would be a good idea to have another challenge in life, as I had a reasonably successful time in Belfast. And I was spurred on or helped by the fact that an office building that I owned and where I had my practice was bombed, believe it or not. And that allowed me to make some moves in certain directions. And anyway, I took advantage of that. One of my partners bought me out and I got on a plane. But I had traveled that year to different parts of America. I'd been to California. I have a brother in Toronto. I went up to Toronto in March. Didn't like what was going on there weather-wise. Obviously, then came down to Florida on the East Coast, where my late wife had some relations there, and then my brother from Toronto would vacation on Longboat Key, and my mother would come over to visit with him. And I noticed an advertisement in a property newspaper in the UK advertising, I think it was the Sarasota International Trade Center, and General Realty, which was the company owned by the late Lynn Robbins, was advertising, and I asked my mum to get in touch with Lynn. Lynn, being the wonderful, hospitable lady that she was, invited my mum to for tea, and said to my mum, "Tell your son not to make a decision until he came to Sarasota." I did come to Sarasota. She was a very terrific host. A gentleman called Don Munsme, one of her associates, took me under his wing. We flew around the area. And again, even though it was 82, what I could see was the potential there, whereas probably on the East Coast, maybe the potential had somewhat been realized. But so I said, you know what? If you're coming across from a different culture, I thought at least this would be a good idea. I spent a few nights on Siesta Key Beach and said, this is not all bad. And,
this is it for me. Well, yeah. And Lynn Robbins, that's such a great contact. I've been at the Observer Media Group almost 20 years, and I remember coming here in 2005 and multiple people saying you have to meet Lynn Robbins. And then I did. I recall she had like her own table at the Bijou Cafe, like it was like her regular spot, right? And I was honored to have lunch with her there. I that sticks out in my head. I remember that. All right, so you had this contact. You get here. Actually, take a step back because you sort of glossed over it, right? You're in Ireland. You grew up in Belfast or in that area, and then you had this bombing. What was that? What was that like in that period of your life?
Well, that was par for the course. The troubles really started in 1969, and really, during the 70s and particularly and certainly in the early 80s. times were tough. I mean, Belfast, the city centre was ringed with, a barricade of steel. You couldn't get in or out of the city centre without being searched and everything like that. But the important thing was, I mean, there were bombings and shootings and all sorts of stuff going on, but you couldn't leave a car unattended for obvious reasons. So I was on my second floor office looking out on the street. A car rolls up, and there's no parking on the street, obviously, because you can't leave a car unattended. The guy gets out, stops the car, gets out, and runs like hell. And I realized we're in trouble here. We cleared the office. I drove home. It was about 8 miles away. And I got out of the car. I heard this tremendous explosion. My phone rang. It was the police and said, "Mr. Black, you better come down here and look at what's going on." So, yeah, it was, I mean, things happened, and your life went on. And if it didn't personally affect you, you just got on with your life.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. As you said that, I'm thinking I don't want to make light of that. That's a very serious situation. But has it helped you handle the pressures of commercial, like interest rates or other things? Do you think that life perspective has helped you deal with all the things you have to deal with as a business owner?
Never thought of it like that, Mark, but I suppose it was a life experience that, I think we're all the sum of our life's experiences. And certainly, it taught me, certainly during those times in Belfast, to be cognizant, to be aware of your surroundings. I mean, if you saw a package or a parcel or something, a suitcase left unattended, you would do something about it. You would let the authorities know. So yes, you became certainly more attentive and more vigilant to your immediate surroundings, for sure.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So you're here, you're in Sarasota, and at some point, I know you're working for other firms. We'll skip ahead a little bit. You start Ian Black Real Estate. What were those early days like, and what were some of the sort of tipping points where you felt like, hey, we have something we could build a business here with?
Well, as I always say, really, it was, if I use the word organic, there was no plan to it. I mean, it was an opportunistic, situation where things happened. I mean, we started off, and I owned a building in north of 10th on Central Avenue, and it was just a small little building that we went into initially. Started on boxes because we didn't have furniture, and I was fortunate in that a gentleman called Ali Ibrahini, who developed Plaza Five Points, which was, I think, not one of the first, but certainly the start of the trend of downtown living.
Yeah.
He retained me to help with the commercial space and the office space, and that was a major listing for me. I managed to put a contract together on the ninth floor, 35,000 square feet. Eventually sold it to our congressman, Vern Buchanan, and it was a great listing, and things just happened.
Yeah. And I know you've done a lot since then. So I've seen your firm work over the years and talked to some of your brokers, obviously, on stories. It seems like, as an outsider, leadership is very important to you, and kind of both what your people do in the community and how they interact with others, but just within the firm. So what is that for you? Why is leadership sort of who's leading the firm important to you? What's that like for you with your model?
Well, I brought the same model that we used in Northern Ireland here, where you would bring in under you competent young people, and you would, to a certain extent, clone them to work and act like you, so that they would eventually drink the Kool-Aid and become partners. And they would eventually, meant I would have to give up part of the company to them, but to a certain extent it handcuffed it. they were handcuffed, and they drank the Kool-Aid and became part of the operation. So, and was very successful in Northern Ireland. And I think I would credit our current success to the efforts, certainly, of my young partners, who are, I think, the closest to me is Nick DeVito. I think he's approaching 60, and there's about 20 years there. Yeah. So, and the rest are 30 years probably.
But you have some people, Nick, or Michelle, Jack, people who've worked for you over the years. Like, you also have a lot of stability. It seems like to me as an outsider that people stay there for a decent period of time, which is not always the case in commercial real estate.
Well, because it's their company. Yeah. So, as I said, there's some, the expression is handcuffed. I mean, yeah, it's their company.
Yeah, right. And that model works. So as a leader, as you've grown as a leader, what are some things that you look for in other leaders? What stands out to you? What makes a good leader?
Well, if I look at the current political situation, without getting into that, I would say honesty. Um, I always remember my dad quoting, I think it was Mark Twain, that said, "You should always tell the truth because you don't have to remember what you said." And I think I've followed that. I mean, I even remember vividly exactly where I was when my father told me that. And I think integrity, because in our business, you are a 10-second wonder. If you can be six, like, as they say, when you get to the top, you can fall off very quickly. So you're really only as good as in our business particularly, it's your reputation. And you have to be cognizant and respect that and work on that. Because that's all we have in our business really is your reputation. And that takes time.
100% right. You guys, yeah, the relationship part of it. You said 10-second wonder. I like that phrase because if you're not coming through with the reliability, the trustworthiness for the client in a place like Sarasota, there's another firm that could take that business from you
in 5 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned your dad. That's great advice. What did your dad do for what did your parents do, and what did you learn from them as a young Ian?
Well, unfortunately, my dad died when he was 54, and I was 20, I think, at the time. So that was a major. But my dad was a brilliant guy. He was an entrepreneur. He uh, he he trained as a barrister. He ended up. He started off in his professional life. He was the assistant to Sir Isaac Wilson. I think that gave him an ulcer. And then he started his own. We were always in the retail house furnishing business, and that was the mainstay. And because we had 5 kids, that my dad would buy a school outfitter, a retail clothing shop, a department store. So he was just, he was very entrepreneurial and obviously taught me a lot. I worked in one of the companies for about a year when I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And he was doing a real estate deal with this real estate broker in Belfast. And my dad came home one day and gave me his card and said, "Go and see this gentleman," which I did. And that's really started my career.
Oh, that's excellent. And what is it? Maybe it's from him or other people in your life. What's a piece of leadership advice that you've received that really resonates with you today?
I mean, I go back to what I said previously. I mean, you just got to have integrity. You've got to, first of all, you got to put the client or the customer first. There's no question about it. And in some cases, we've had to eat humble pie, return commissions when things didn't quite go according to plan. And but those situations, I think one of the things I've realized is your disappointments or failures in your professional life are really better than the the good things, because you learn more from your disappointments and your failures. And I try to make that clear to people, because like so often we get down in the dumps, and we get excited when we have a great closing. But I think really over time, and certainly at this stage in my career, it's a balance. I try not to get, I take the practical side of the failures, and I take the good things that we do, and we look at them, and we say, where did we go wrong? What happened here? Why didn't we get this listing? That's one thing that sort of, just because I often wonder, how on earth did somebody else get that listing? I mean, how could they turn around and give it to another company? Because we think, I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but we think we're good. We think that we're the best in town.
Well, sure, if you put all that time in. And is there one, as you talked about, right, you learn a lot from disappointments or setbacks. Is there a certain deal you didn't get, a certain failures, used, but setback or happening that didn't work out the way you wanted, that you learned the most from?
One of an example. I mean, we lost. Uh, well, we've had a lot of success in competitive bidding. Um, we lost a a deal in the Rosemary district, and I considered the Rosemary district my little fiefdom. I'd bought property there back in '95. I was a pioneer. I was on the forefront of, making the Rosemary district what it is. No, I'm not going to claim total credit for it, obviously, but I was, we used to have 5 or 6 people at neighborhood meetings in the Rosemary district. And now we have what, 100 or something like that. We lost at the corner of Boulevard of the Arts and Central. There were two properties, the old Renaissance storage place. And I mean, I couldn't believe we didn't get that listing. Um, and I tried to find out why we didn't get it. And I think it was the other broker had talked to the city about what could and couldn't be done there. I knew what could or couldn't be done. So I couldn't quite understand, but yeah, that would be one that really hurt because of my efforts in the Rosemary district.
Yeah, well, you've done a lot in Rosemary. In fact, I went to a meeting that you encouraged me to go to probably almost like 18 years ago. And the only reason I remember this is because we wrote a story in the Sarasota Observer where the headline was Rosemary Rising.
Yeah, I remember that.
And,
Yeah.
because the up and coming Rosemary district. And then 10 years later, we wrote another story with the same headline. I was like, wait a minute, we already used that headline. So Rosemary's been constantly rising. But it's actually a good segue, Ian, because you've done a lot of work in Rosemary, but you're very involved in the community in different parts. I know you've done a lot downtown as well. It's sort of a two-pronged question. One, why is being involved like that important to you? And what are some of the things you're doing right now for Sarasota community?
Uh, why is that important? Look, um, I have grown to love this community and understand that it's probably one of the best places to live in the United States of America. And we can always be better. But we have natural attributes and other attributes that I don't think are available anywhere else in the country when you take the combination of our cultural foundations, our cultural aspects, our proximity to the bay. I mean, I live downtown, and I can walk to the bay in 2 minutes. I mean, it's fabulous. Um, no, that doesn't mean it's perfect or anything like that. But what I'm involved, so I obviously I want to make the community a better place. I mean, as you know, in the Jewish religion, it's, you know, tikkun olam. You want to leave this world a better place. If you do nothing in your life, that should be your guiding light. So currently, I'm probably doing more than I should do. I on the board of the chamber, uh, and sit on Terry Hansen's executive committee there. I also a board member of the Sarasota African American Cultural Coalition, which we hope to build a cultural center, you know, celebrating African American contributions to Sarasota. In fact, we're just in the final stages of negotiating a option to purchase land on Martin Luther King.
Oh, wow. That's great. I knew that was coming. That's great.
Yeah. So we got that going. And I've just been invited to serve on the board of the Bay Conservancy. So I'm actually very excited about that, to give my 10 cents worth for what is should be and hopefully will be an iconic 30, I think it's 35 acres, is either 35 or 40 acres. Oh, just unbelievable what's going on there and what will go on there. And also, you know, the money is there to do whatever is necessary and whatever the community wants to be done there. I mean, when you look at the TIF district that's going to fund this, I mean, the dollars are staggering that are available. So we need to think big regarding the Bay. I mean, we just need to. This is a generational opportunity that hopefully we will take advantage of. So I'm going to be part of that. I'm happy. And I've just also been invited to be on a task force that's going to work with the Education Foundation. They recently acquired a property on Washington and Ringling, and you know, they're thinking big. They would like to create a mixed-use project there with affordable apartments for teachers and, you know, educators, and then have their office, whatever they need for their amenities. So that only came in today, I think, or yesterday. So,
well, yeah, that's the across from the parking garage where the Observer Media Group is. I know that. I pass that property every day.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's excellent. And so all this leads up to the next part of this question. How cool is it? I know you're not like a bragging kind of person. I think this is awesome. And I don't know how many people in the audience know this. October 6th has been officially designated Ian Black Day by the city of Sarasota. A, how cool is that? And B, what does that mean? Do we have to like give you something or give you a key? What do we do on October 6th?
Well, certainly
give you a deal?
Genuflecting would be appropriate. I think we'll probably have to close the office on October the 6th. Yeah, I mean, it was a lovely surprise. When Marlon gave me the key and Kyle, they said, by the way, it doesn't open any doors, but you know, I have it in a you know, on display at home, and just a nice reminder that your efforts out there are appreciated, and it certainly was delightful.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, Ian. You certainly have done a tremendous amount for Sarasota, and it's and different communities you live in. So well deserved. Okay, before we let you go, we have 3 rapid fire questions we end with. Okay. What is a bucket list place you've never been to that you would love to go to?
I think Japan is on our bucket list at the moment.
Who are 2 people you'd love to have dinner with, dead or alive?
Rory McIlroy would be one, and I think this is a bit controversial, but I'd like to have dinner with Bibi Netanyahu, just because he's controversial.
Yeah, well, if they're both at the same dinner, that's great. I mean, that would just be like you could just split off between conversations, right? But I mean, Bibi's a fascinating person. You're right, controversial, but certainly a fascinating human being, what he's accomplished in his life. Okay, and last question, and Rory McIlroy is pretty cool too. Last question, what's your favorite thing to prepare, cook, meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever? What's your absolute favorite thing to prepare?
Breakfast. I'm not a cook.
What for breakfast?
Cook breakfast. I love breakfast. I mean, we can have breakfast at, you know, at noon, at I can have breakfast any time of the day. I like breakfast.
Yes. Awesome. Ian Black of Ian Black Real Estate, thank you for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Thank you, Mark. I look forward to it.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordy. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.